my story begins with a pretty normal beginning. I had awesome parents. They were both Christians. They were both very good to me. They both loved me a lot. My childhood was amazing until like one day when I was 8 years old, my dad died through an accident at work, and that changed my life forever. I still had a fairly normal upbringing. I was saved in church at 7 years old. My life was really quite amazing other than that moment, but it did give me this feeling of abandonment, this fear that I was going to be abandoned by anyone who loved me. And that over time it turned into just a constant fear of ever letting anyone close. Through that fear, I started to try to find things to fill a void inside of me. And as I got older, I found alcohol. Alcohol pretty much made me feel exactly the way that I always thought that I should feel. I could go on for a long time talking about all the different stories that alcohol did that made me feel like accepted. It made me feel just warm inside. It made me feel no fear for the first time in my life. But as I started to use alcohol to cope with all these different problems in life and celebrating the good times as well, I also started to develop a dependency towards it. Alcoholism began to take things from me. It took my relationships, my finances, my hope in anything at all. Everything was affected by this, including my relationship with God. I started to fear letting God close to me, allowing Him to take care of me through my things, because I decided to put alcohol in place of where God was supposed to fit in my heart. I was trying to fill this void inside of myself since my dad died from the very beginning. And this turned into having shakes because of alcoholism, hallucinations every time I tried to quit, seizures that would land me in the hospital for weeks at a time. All these things started to happen, and I couldn't understand how this thing that I had put all my faith into was just betraying me completely. I felt abandoned even by this substance that made me feel good for my whole life. When I was in the hospital in Grand Rapids after a very serious seizure, I was told by my neurologist that I had a year to live if I kept on drinking. This horrified me, this scared me very much. But the addiction was so strong at the time that as soon as I got out, I began drinking again, because that void was still not filled inside of me. I still needed something. I couldn't feel God's love. At this point, I had lost many friends. All my relationships were just completely toxic. I had no hope to live, and so I became suicidal. I sat one night with a shotgun in my mouth, just absolutely ready to die. I could not go on anymore. This void that had not been filled had finally just culminated to me having no hope to move on. But I felt in that moment that God had a plan for me. I didn't know what that looked like at the time, but I found later that God had a plan to restore me. God had a plan to love me. God had a plan to fill every part of me that was just empty before. Substances could not fill this void. The only thing that could fill it was God's love, and I finally discovered that.
Since the time I was a teenager, the deepest desire in my heart was to be a wife and a mom. I remember my grandma, Mimi, would say to me, "You really should wait until you're 28 years old to get married." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I love you, Mimi, but oh my goodness, no, I'm going to be married when I'm 19. And I'm going to have so many kids by the time I'm 28. Because I felt like that was something that was so deep in me. I wanted that more than I wanted anything else. I didn't care about a career. I didn't care about a lot of other things, making money. None of that really mattered to me as much as being loved by a man and having kids. And I had such an awesome upbringing. My parents were just amazing. They loved me so much. And I wanted to be like my mom. And she was an awesome wife and an awesome mom to me. And so when I graduated high school, I was not married. So I thought, well, I guess you go to college now. So I felt really led to go to CMU, and I went there and got a degree in journalism. I loved writing, and I still had that void in me, though. I just really wanted another person. I just wanted, I don't know, to be normal like everyone else. And there's times when I would just I desired it so much I would try to make it happen myself. And I would just try and, if there's somebody I kind of had a crush on, I would try and somehow find a way to get in front of them or just be around them. And throughout all this time, I felt like this thing I was trying to make happen myself was not working at all. And this void in me, I needed it to be filled somehow. And it couldn't be filled through this striving and through trying to make something happen in my life. It really was the love of God that I needed deep in my heart. And so as I was raised in a Christian home and really knew God from a young age, but I think there's a time in everyone's life where you just decide, is this something that's going to be real to you or not? And I think a lot of that happened for me in college. And a lot of that happened around just this desire in my heart that was unfulfilled. And so as the years went by and as I graduated from college and I still wasn't married, and I felt like I was the social outcast, as all of my friends would get married and have kids and then have another kid, and I just felt like I'm not like everyone else. But I began to just seek the heart of God and spend time in prayer and just asking what His heart was for me. And there's a story in the Bible, in the Old Testament, where Abraham and Sarah are given this promise. God promised Abraham that he would be a father, and He promised him this in his kind of middle age, but they were very old when this finally happened, and it did happen for them. And the whole story in the Bible is just about waiting and just trusting and just doing what you're supposed to be doing in the moment. And so you might know their son's name, Abraham and Sarah's son's name, is Isaac. So God would just kind of encourage me with that. And I'm a big journaler, so I would write in my journal many times. As I look back in my journals, I see the phrase, wait for the Isaac. And now, obviously, I can tell that was God just showing me to wait for Isaac and wait for him and pray for him in the times that he needed prayer. I would be praying for him. I would pray very specifically for him. Like, for years ago, I was praying and I didn't know why I was praying or what I was praying for, but now hearing his story and everything that he's gone through, I know so much how God was leading me and directing me to pray for him and to wait for him. And as I just waited and as I just let God fill that spot in my heart until Isaac and I were ready to meet each other, I just began to see these just passions in the way that I'm created. And I have this awesome career. He led me into this career in communications and marketing, and then into leadership within that. And that I just love. I love that so much. That gives me such joy to just lead so many other people. And God has been so faithful in just putting His heart in me, and just He's filling those places that I was just letting sit empty and trying to fill with other things.
So, after all of these bad things happened with alcoholism, I finally, by the grace of God, did get sober on September 26, 2015. I just recently celebrated 4 years of sobriety. My life has changed forever. I've been given everything that was taken away from me. Through alcoholism, I had lost my job, my family basically, my friends, my money, everything was taken from me, but through my recovery, I've been given my friends back, my relationships, my family, my finances, my hope. I got my job back with the city of Cadillac, which later turned into a job in collegiate recovery, which now turned into me working as an addictions counselor for 1016 Recovery Network. All of these things I never thought were possible, but here I am today, and I'm happier than I've ever been, because the void that was in my heart that needed to be filled by God is finally filled there. I feel His love. I have a reason to go on. I had a desire in my heart for a long time to find somebody that met all of my qualifications. I wanted her to believe in God. I wanted her to be beautiful. I wanted her to just completely be a companion for me in this life and to support me in my recovery and to be pure. I wanted all of these things. And I began to realize that these things might be too hard, too high of standards. So I stayed single for a long time after a toxic relationship. I was single for 8 years. And all of a sudden, I decided to come home by chance on a Sunday and go to Res Life in Cadillac. I had been living in Mount Pleasant for the past 6 years, and so I didn't come to this church as often. I was after service, I was getting coffee, and I happened to look over and I saw this girl looking at me. And she just was really beautiful. She was tall. And I didn't think much of it. As time went on, I happened to reach out and we started talking. And through this talking, I found that she loved God so much, that she was just totally pure, that she came from a good family, that she was everything that I needed and so much more. And so I asked her to go to Cabernet with me, Cabernet Peaks. We went skiing, and through that, it started this thing. It started this relationship. And now I stand here today, and everything that I've ever needed in a woman is in Sarah. She fills every need and desire that I ever wanted. And I'm just so blessed to be where I am today. And I'm so thankful that God gave me Sarah. Through all this patience and just waiting, I finally am where I want to be in the relationship. And I'm in a perfect relationship now. We go through our times, our hard times, like any couple does, but we go through it with God. God helps us get through everything. Helps us to grow together, helps us learn together. And for that, I am blessed. And this will be a blessing that will last me the rest of my life.
As God led me in my life and I became more confident in who He made me to be, but the desires in my heart really just became strong. As I understood that God loves me enough to fulfill the desires that He put in my heart, I just became more clear in the list of criteria that I had for who my future husband would be. Anybody who's known me in the past couple of years knows that there's been a lot of times people would ask if they could set me up with someone, and the first thing I would ask is, how tall is he? Because I knew that I wanted someone that was definitely taller than me, but preferably around the 6'6" range. And God just knew that in my heart, and as I began to let His love fill me, I knew that's something that was really not negotiable between the two of us. So when Isaac came into my life and I met him, not only was he tall and so handsome, but he loved God, and he was on this amazing journey of building his own character and just loving himself and finding out who he was. And he just matched up so perfectly with who I am and the ways that I operate as a person. And he's been everything I ever asked. The list, looking back at the list, it was clearly written for him. It was every single thing on there he has and more. And things that I even didn't put on the list but still really wanted, things like his hair and his little beardy thing. I just love all of it. And God just really He filled my heart's desire, but even more. And he can do the exact same thing for you. Because that's who God is. And he just loves us so much beyond what we even realize. There's a verse that I've considered it my life verse because it just really has made a lot of impact in my life. And just like the first time I heard it, I felt like, oh man, that is amazing to me. And it's Ephesians 3:20, and it's that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all you can ask or think, according to the power that works in us. And that's exactly what He did in my life with Isaac, and that's exactly what He'll continue doing in our lives because we trust Him to do that, and we know His character better now.
So after, hearing all this, hearing how my story happened and just the amazing things God did in my life, and hearing all the amazing things that God did in Sarah's life, filling the voids that we each had, and then also fulfilling the desires that we had for a partner, and seeing how we came together, I just want to encourage you that put your faith in God, trust in God, feel His love. Let Him fill the parts of you that are empty, because God's got a plan for you, and He's going to do exceedingly abundantly more than you can ask or think as well.
And we just love you all so much, and we're so grateful that you are here to share this day with us. And you each have a special place in our heart, but even more, you have a special place in our Father's heart.